March 4th, Buncombe County Board of Commissioners meeting. We will start with our introduction video. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. A parking validation announcement. Anyone parking for this meeting or using the bus can pick up passes from our sheriff's deputies now or on their way out, and it will be valid for today only. Our ethics reminder to the board. In accordance with the Code of Ethics adopted by the board, all county commissioners have a duty to obey all applicable laws regarding official actions, to uphold the integrity and independence of the office, to avoid impropriety in the exercise of official duties, to faithfully perform the duties of the office, and to conduct the affairs of the governing board in an open and public manner. Is there any item on the agenda, the outcome of which will have a direct, substantial, and readily identifiable financial impact for any board member? Also, does any board member have a financial interest in any public contract coming before this board today? There being none, all board members have a duty and obligation to a vote. We'll move on to our consent agenda, or before that, I do think we have an addition to the agenda this evening.
That's correct. Just one item that I think we wanted to add to the agenda, a board appointment. So I'll go ahead and make a motion that we amend our agenda to allow for a board appointment, specifically to VIA.
To VIA. All right.
A second.
Dan, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we have unanimous approval to add the VIA board appointment to the agenda at the appropriate time, and approval to follow the agenda as presented. Does anyone from the public have questions or comments about tonight's consent agenda or any commissioners? There being none, do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Sloan, second by Moore. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, let's move forward into public comment. Do we have, yes, there it is. We do have some folks signed up for public comment this evening. A couple of public comment reminders. The time limit for individual comment to the board is 3 minutes. Please state your name before you begin speaking. If your time expires, you may leave any question along with your name, address, and phone number with the county manager. Commissioners are not expected to comment on any matters during public comment. This is your time to speak to us. The board reserves the right to deny any public address on any subject previously presented to the board during the same meeting. Please note, a group can elect one person to speak for 10 minutes if 8 people in attendance relinquish their right to speak on the issue. All right, I think our first person to sign up, and please correct me if I mispronounce any names, is Susan Scheimer with Buncombe County. Scheimer. Thank you, Susan. Yes.
As you may recall, I'm the chair of the Home and Community Care Block Grant Advisory Committee. These are members Eileen McMinn and Melissa Harmon. Like many other county boards and commissions, we are appointed by you. At the last meeting, I advocated for maintaining in the FY26 budget the $500,000 grant known as Buncombe County Supplemental Aging Funds. Today, I continue that advocacy. The grant money is located within Health and Human Services Division of Social Services. These grantee organizations provide services that support well-being of county residents 60 plus and protects their ability to age in place, which is both compassionate and cost effective. The funding amounts are determined by you. We recognize that difficult FY budget decisions will be made given the post-Helene economic conditions. The Supplemental Aging Fund grantees serve vulnerable community residents who felt the storm's impact themselves, but also the impact on people, services, and facilities on which they depend. These grant services take care of county elders by providing essential activities such as home care, home-based primary care, financial counseling, respite service for caregivers, and social engagement. The needs are only increased after the storm. The committee believes that these services supplement all recovery efforts. Please keep all 78,892 seniors, which is 29% of county residents, in mind when making your budget decisions. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Laura Tompkins.
Hi, my name is Laura Tompkins. I have been a resident and a taxpayer in Buncombe County since 2005. I'm a parent of 2 teens that attend A.C. Reynolds High School. I'm a volunteer and a member of the A.C. Reynolds PTSA. We support the school in multiple ways, such as helping the underserved student population in our rocket launch program and providing mini grants for teachers. Rocket Launch serves our most at-risk students with counseling support and aid from our funds to help directly give materials to these students. Mini grant funds students' enrichment programs and assists teachers to go above and beyond the basic needs. They provide additional resources that profoundly affect our students' school experience and expand student opportunities in the classroom. Recently, however, many of the mini grant applications we've received are requesting funds for basic school supplies like paper and pencils. Why are staff now using mini grants for school supplies? Maybe this commission rescinded $3.8 million that had been allocated to the Buncombe County Schools operating budget. Though we do not, the PTSA, know the future budget for our parent membership dues, we are planning to continue our support of A.C. Reynolds because we know it is the right thing to do. It is what we do to show our young people that we value them. Now, you are beginning to plan the future school year budgets. Important and worthy are the county commission goals that support thriving and resilient residents through kindergarten and career readiness. We know that our county is growing and the tax revenue will be there. So I urge you to be proactive and meet your stated goals. At minimum, fully reinstate the local supplements and at the very least hold those amounts year after year. You must show our children you support them by allocating the funds needed to adequately cover operating costs and school capital funds. You must invest in our children's educational future. Without your commitment to the students of this county, the Commission's goals will not be met, and achievement gaps will only widen. I am sure you understand that valued education supports your constituents and their families, and in turn supports our economy. This mission of your strategic plan states and that you promote healthy, safe, well-educated, and a thriving community with a sustainable quality of life. We provide effective and efficient government that our citizens can trust. Can we trust you to make the tough but correct decision and fund our schools appropriately?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Marianne Morgaine Squire.
Thank you for your time. I am Mary Squire. This is Larry Dotson and Sandy Cook, and we are representing members of our beach community. We need your help with the Beach Community Center of Reems Creek, a cherished county-owned facility spanning approximately 2 acres, complete with a meeting hall and a ball field located on the eastern end of Weaverville and District 2. The land the center stands on once belonged to some of our very own family members. Over the years, our families donated thousands of dollars and significant labor for building restoration, and for many years, the center thrived as a hub of community engagement. It operated with annual elections, community meetings, and fostered inclusivity and participation from all community members. However, for the past 2 decades, all democratic processes have been dismantled by a single unelected individual. Furthermore, this individual has not lived in our community for over a decade, exceeds the 3-year term limit with 20-plus years of self-appointed control, hides financial records, would not present the community with the center's bylaws, and now has no one they are accountable to other than the county. We worked hard to create a governance structure with the guidance of WNC Communities, yet these attempts have been met with hostility by the current leadership. Some residents remain excluded from the center's operations, and some of us are banned from using it after hosting community events. Can you help us? Can you guide us in how to return the Beach Community Center that is owned by the county to the use of the people it was intended to serve? It is time to ensure this valuable resource is governed fairly, transparently, and collaboratively, no longer controlled by one person. We can restore this center as a vibrant gathering place for all and a source of community pride within Buncombe County and the Reems Creek Valley. Thank you. Sincerely, concerned residents of Beach Community.
Thank you. Christine Aiken.
Good evening. Thank you for your time. My name is Christine Aiken. I am the Vice President of Student Advocacy for the A.C. Reynolds High School PTSA Board. I come to you today because we have been concerned, obviously, with the 3.8 cut to this year's operating budget. We're hearing from parents, teachers, and staff at the school that this sends a very alarming message that we cannot trust our elected county officials to stand by their word to support our schools. Furthermore, we would like more transparency around Article 39. We do not want to end up in a position where we are forced to either properly fund our schools or repair our schools. So our ask is more transparency around both of those issues and to send a message that you do support our students, teachers, and staff at our school. We know that many of you are parents. Some of you started as advocates, and you're trying to do the right thing. We know that you didn't look at the budget and instantly go straight to education and decide to make that cut. These are tough calls, and we don't fault you for that, but we do ask for your consideration, especially in matters where funds have already been allocated. It erodes the public's trust, and we really are concerned with that. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Holly Johnson.
Good evening. My name is Holly Johnson. I'm from Candler, North Carolina. I am very happy to be here tonight, and I see all the members of the board that I voted on, and I'm so proud that you represent us. I am also proud to live in Buncombe County. We have an election service here that is known countrywide for its integrity, and I want us to keep it that way. I'm concerned about the move that is planned, and I think the problem is probably a lack of communications, because I hear one thing from you people and I hear something entirely different when I go to the Board of Elections meeting. So I do hope that you can get together with them and that we can solve this problem in that's the best thing for community. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Holly. Elsie Clemens?
Good evening, Elsie Clemens. It's my first time here. I'm a new resident to Buncombe County, so thank you all. I am in Swannanoa, and I am a unaffiliated volunteer participating in Swannanoa Grassroots Alliance meetings. First, we wanted to thank you from Swannanoa for the small area plan coming up on agenda last time. That is a big deal for us, so we really deeply wanted to extend some appreciation for that. I have been tasked with bringing a few concerns for people that couldn't be here this evening. One was about permitting, the permitting for impacted residents. There are fees now being levied, which means that a lot of the people that didn't have the financial means to be able to repair their homes or businesses sooner are now the ones carrying the burden of the finances. And while we recognize that there are very challenging financial stresses put upon the county, as there are all municipal governments impacted by this cataclysmic disaster, we hope that we can find a way to avoid charging fees on permits pulled by people that have been very impacted financially. We welcome you all to come as frequently as you will to Swannanoa. We have businesses opening every day, and we are super excited about things like bridge reopenings and beginning to have buildings taken down. That also brings up the debris removal. We would very much request that the county continue to do right-of-way debris removal. We are still just now beginning to bring down a lot of buildings, and if the county can please have its vendors continue to remove the right-of-way debris that we are working diligently just now. We're still very much in response, so we appreciate anything that you can do to assist us with that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Elsie. Are there any other members who would like to speak? All right, thank you all. We will move into our presentations, and our first one is our School Resource Officer Proclamation. Vice Chair Moore is here to read it and present it to Captain Elliott Summey, District 1, Buncombe County Sheriff's Office.
County of Buncombe Proclamation, School Resource Officer Appreciation Day. Whereas the National Association of School Resource Officers is dedicated to making schools and children safer by providing the highest quality training to school-based law enforcement officers. Whereas school resource officers bridge gaps between youth and law enforcement and embrace a triad concept of school policing, serving in informal, counseling, education, and law enforcement roles to support students and communities they serve. Whereas, by training law enforcement officers to counsel, educate, and protect school communities, the men and women of NASRO continuously lead by example and promote a positive image of law enforcement to school children and school communities. Whereas, SRO programs across the globe are founded as collaborative efforts by police agencies, law enforcement officers, educators, students, parents, and communities to create safe learning environments, provide valuable resources to school staff, foster positive relationships with students, and develop strategies to resolve problems that affect youth with the goal of protecting all children so they can reach their fullest potential. Whereas school resource officers are valuable and essential members of the education community and deserve unwavering respect and support from the public in pursuit of keeping schools and students safe. Now therefore be it proclaimed that the Buncombe County Board of Commissioners does hereby proclaim March 4th as School Resource Officer Appreciation Day, a special day to show appreciation for school-based law enforcement officers, and we encourage all residents to show their gratitude with support and personal messages. This, the 4th day of March, 2024, Amanda Edwards, Chair of Buncombe County Board of Commissioners. I'm happy to present this to Captain Summey, as well as Sergeant Fisher, who's kind enough to join us, and we're very appreciative and grateful for all the work that y'all do in our schools. Thank you.
I wasn't prepared to say a few words, but I would like to personally thank everybody that has looked into this for me. I really do appreciate it. Our school resource officers are more than just deputies. They're mentors, they're role models, they're educators. And without them on a daily basis, I don't know what we would do at our schools. They are some of our highest trained deputies at the sheriff's office, and I just want them to know how much we appreciate them and all their hard work. So thank you all very much for recognizing their efforts. It means a lot. Thank you.
Thank you, Captain Summy, and to all of our SROs. We truly appreciate the work that you do in our schools. Thank you. Commissioner Wells is going to join us to read our Ag Awareness Proclamation. Jackie Gillespie is here to receive the proclamation. Jennifer Harrison will be joining her, and I would also like to invite all of our FFA students to the podium to join them. It's always exciting to see you all with us.
Well, it's my pleasure to present this County of Buncombe proclamation for Buncombe County Ag Awareness Day. And we're so excited that we're doing this early. Ag Awareness Day will actually be March 18th. But whereas March 18th, 2025 has been designated as National Agriculture Day to remind the public of the importance of agriculture to everyone. And whereas Buncombe County has over 1,000 farms and more than 78,000 acres of farmland, which produce almost $50 million in cash receipts in Buncombe County, and whereas the Buncombe County Commissioners have recognized the importance of preserving farmland in the county through its support and funding of the Farmland Preservation Program, which helps preserve working farms and open space in Buncombe County and contributes to the economic health and environmental well-being of Buncombe County. And whereas the Buncombe County Commissioners have demonstrated the Commission's commitment to agriculture by forming an Agriculture and Land Resources Department within Buncombe County, and supports the agriculture community through helping to fund or fully funding positions in the Agriculture and Land Resources Department, Cooperative Extension, and the Buncombe County Soil and Water Conservation District. Whereas the Buncombe County Commissioners honor the immeasurable ecological and societal contributions of small farms as a measure of community resilience in the face of climate change impacts and food insecurity from natural disasters. And whereas the Buncombe County Commissioners recognize the strong development of the next generation of agricultural stewards as evident by the vibrant FFA Future Farmers of America programs that we have in our local high schools. And whereas the Buncombe County Commissioners recognize that agriculture is a vital and fundamental part of the economic foundation of Buncombe County, contributing to the health, prosperity, and sustainability of our communities. And whereas the Buncombe County Commissioners appreciate the contributions of our farmers, growers, agricultural workers, and families for their hard work and commitment to feeding our communities, preserving our natural resources, and building a resilient agricultural future for generations to come. Whereas the Buncombe County Commissioners recognize the importance of agriculture in our daily lives and the critical role it plays in supporting the diverse culture, economy, and heritage of Buncombe County. Now therefore, be it proclaimed that the Buncombe County Board of Commissioners hereby resolves and declares March 18th, 2025 as Buncombe County Ag Awareness Day, signed this 4th day of March 2025 by Amanda Edwards, Chair of the Buncombe County Board of Commissioners. And now I think actually Ashley is going to come up here and say a few words. Are you as well, Jackie? Okay, Jackie and Ashley.
I'd just like to thank y'all. I guess you're tired of seeing me come every year, so I brought a few friends this time. But thank y'all for everything you do and the support that you give agriculture. We have some, our ag bags and then our North Buncombe FFA. Our ag bags have some local products that are raised right here in Buncombe County for you to enjoy. And I'd like for the kids to come back and introduce themselves and tell you what schools they represent this year. Also in your bag you will find a schedule We will be reading for all the second graders in Buncombe County Schools starting the week of March 24th. There is a schedule in there, so I fully expect to see you guys out there with us. I'm looking for volunteers. I'll just go ahead and tell you, we've got 21 schools lined up for over the week, so it takes a lot of resources to make that happen. So please, Terry knows too well how to get in touch with me, so she goes out with us, and we'd really appreciate if y'all would go with us to a school and read. This time, I'd like the kids to introduce themselves and tell you what school they represent. Just talk loud.
Hi, my name is Lana London, and I'm here representing Inca FFA chapter.
Hi, my name is Lydia Messer, and I'm the Vice President of the Inca FFA chapter.
My name is Lydia Williamson. I'm the President of the Charles D. Owen chapter. I'm Addison LaFave, and I am from the Owen FFA chapter, and I serve as the Secretary.
Hi, I'm Lily Wright. I'm Secretary of AC Reynolds FFA chapter.
Hey, I'm Bryson Smith. I'm the President of the Reynolds FFA chapter.
Hey, my name's Emmeline Stack, and I'm co-president of the North Buncombe FFA chapter.
Hi, my name is Addison Sprinkle. I'm Vice President of the North Buncombe FFA chapter.
I'm Miley Ponder, and I'm the other co-president of the North Buncombe FFA chapter.
I'm Jackson Reeves, and I'm the President of Clyde A. Irwin High School.
So hey guys, I'm Ashley Oliver, and I'm here. I'm a member of our Buncombe County Farm Bureau Women's Leadership Committee, and we just first of all want to thank you for taking the time to hear us today for the proclamation, and just kind of want and you just know that agriculture and farming is just at the heart of who we are and what we do in Buncombe County. We just want to talk just a little bit today about what we saw during Hurricane Helene with our local farms, our agricultural community, and take the time to brag on our Buncombe County, our North Carolina Cooperative Extension here in Buncombe County. We have Abby Whitaker here with us, who's our Buncombe County livestock agent, and they played just such a vital role for us with recovery efforts. Just want to applaud them for those efforts. They just first started by identifying immediate needs that farmers and agriculture residents had here in Buncombe County. Needs included livestock feed, water, fencing, water systems, plants and nurseries, just general needs to for individuals to sustain, while we were kind of navigating those first few days. Our extension agents just through the years have fostered and developed personal relationships with our local master gardeners, 4-H families, farmers, livestock owners that were just vital with them being able to just immediately identify needs with very limited communication. Since the storm, we've seen information tables that were set up at community events in hard-hit areas, connecting people through social media, through websites to meet their needs, assisting with applications for assistance, and very importantly, which me personally was, it was a great help to us, was connecting donors with donation sites and farms that needed things. All the provisions and ongoing efforts have been wonderful, and just want to, thank you guys, thank them for all their efforts. The ongoing workshops that are happening now and in the future for disaster relief, soil restoration, crop production, just many more things are just going to keep being needed in the weeks and months and years to come. So we just want to thank you for that provision.
All right, guys. Thank you.
And while they're lining up, Kurt, do we need a motion to suspend the rules to eat salsa during the meeting?
You're good.
And Jackie, if you will send us information on volunteering, that would be great. Thank you. Oh, perfect. Thank you. And thank you all for the treats. We have our Continuum of Care update, and Lacey Hoyle is here to give us more information. That's a hard act to follow, Lacey.
It is, yes. I don't have gifts for you all, I'm sorry. Thank you. Good evening, Commissioners. Good to see you all. Lacey Hoyle, Homelessness Program Manager. I am here today to update you on what's been happening with the continuum of care in the last quarter. I wanted to start with the point-in-time count. So the point-in-time count, or the PIT count, is a federally mandated, unduplicated count of people who meet the federal definition for homelessness. So that's folks who are utilizing emergency shelters in our community, those who are in transitional housing, and individuals who are experiencing unsheltered homelessness in our COC. This is intended to be a snapshot count that's conducted over one night, and it has to be conducted over the last 10 days in January. Historically, although the count only has to be done every 2 years, our COC has conducted it annually, and recently we have done 2 days of counting. So for this year, for the count, volunteers and local service providers conducted surveys via a street count on the evening of January 28th, and then surveys at service locations on the 29th of January, along with some targeted outreach that was conducted by outreach providers in our COC2 encampments that are in our COC. This year we had 135 volunteers for the PIT count. And they went all throughout the county, which is our COC's service area, to conduct that count. So right now this data is being deduplicated, and it will be aggregated by the lead agency for the COC. It's submitted to HUD, and typically it's shared in the community in around April or May. So I expect to be back to share that data with you, hopefully at my next quarterly update. I wanted to also just give you an update on Code Purple. So as you probably know, Code Purple is our community's initiative to expand shelter capacity and lower barriers to emergency shelter entry in order to offer safe shelter to our unhoused neighbors during cold weather and extreme weather events. The Code Purple parameters are anytime the temperature is forecasted to be 32 or below with the wind chill, or when the temperature is between 33 and 40 degrees with precipitation in the forecast. And we have also called Code Purple for other extreme weather events this year. So far this year, we've had 63 Code Purple nights. The average utilization per night at both locations, so the ABCCM is providing shelter for men at 20th Street, and for women and children at Transformation Village. So far, the average utilization per night has been about 48 people. The period of time for Code Purple this year is July 1st, 2024 through June 30th, 2025. And our county funding for this year has been $50,000, which was a match with the city's local funds for that. I also wanted to just share some updates on COC board activity. So we are continuing to work to fill vacant COC board seats, with the most recent seat that we filled being the supportive service provider seat. David Bartholomew, who heads up the homelessness prevention services at Pisgah Legal Services, is sitting in that seat. We also have a dedicated COC representative seat on the board for the Downtown Business Improvement District, and our COC chair, Melina Arrowwood, is currently occupying that seat on our behalf. We also established some committees and work groups, including two committees which are chartered, the System Performance Committee and the Community Relations Committee, and we've established a work group for COC emergency planning that came out of a really, I would say, illuminating and productive conversation that the COC board and the membership had, kind of debriefing everyone's experience of Helene and how providers responded, what they needed. And so we're going to be developing an emergency plan for the COC in light of that. The COC board also approved the surveys that were used this year to engage unhoused individuals for the PIT count. And last but not least, we are in the midst of strategic planning. So we had a COC membership input session at our membership meeting on January 15th. And then the board underwent 2 days of strategic planning with HUD technical assistance support for that. And that was on February 17th and 18th. And since we have talked about strategic planning, I also just wanted to kind of reorient us to the Within Reach study. So as you all know, the Within Reach study was conducted by the National Alliance to End Homelessness after they were engaged by the City of Asheville in partnership with Buncombe County and with funding support from Dogwood Health Trust. And the purpose of that study was to identify needs and to develop a report to help our community understand how we could improve our response to homelessness. So that report includes recommendations to guide our work within the Buncombe County and City of Asheville COC, including 5 strategies and 112 action steps. And I have the strategies listed here for you. Create a strong foundation. So that's really working on systems level planning and coordination. Implementing evidence-based and inclusive policy to make sure that we have an equitable and person-centered system. Improving our system performance through our program design. Those action steps are really about decreasing system inflow and increasing the outflow. Improve data quality and reporting. And then investing in the future, so strategies to increase the production of and access to permanent housing solutions. I wanted to just mention the Within Reach study here since our COC is engaging in strategic planning. We are intending to confirm COC support on the Within Reach study recommendations and to provide action strategy updates at the next quarterly report after we confer with the lead agency. Next steps for the COC, so strategic planning is continuing. The lead agency staff and our HUD TA support are in the midst of developing an initial draft for presentation to the board. Once the strategic plan is adopted, the board will assign a committee to oversee and work on the action plan related to that strategic plan. And then upcoming meetings, so there is a COC board meeting that is virtual on March 13th at 4 p.m. There's a tentative membership meeting scheduled for April 9th at 6 p.m. at Harris Cherokee Center Banquet Hall. And that is tentative because right now board officers are engaging the membership following a recommendation to shift the time and the cadence of those membership meetings to ensure accessibility. So we have that scheduled now, but it may change based on the feedback that those board officers receive. What questions do you all have for me?
Any questions for Lacey? All right. Thank you for the update, and it's exciting to see some progress being made in this really important area in our community. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you.
All right, we'll move into our public hearing, presentation before public hearing on our 2025 LOBs. And Mason Scott, our Assistant Finance Director, is going to provide us some additional information. Good evening, Mason.
Good evening. So this conversation continues a discussion that we started in February regarding the refinancing of previously issued debt. I believe I mentioned in February that there are several procedural steps that we will work through with you all for this type of debt transaction. These are those steps to remind me and to acclimate you all. So had a discussion and an introduction of the findings resolution at the February 18th briefing. I'll give you a brief recap of that today. Today, we'll also ask you to consider approval of that findings resolution following the holding of a public hearing related to the debt transaction this year. I'll also be introducing the issuance resolution, which is the final formal act for you all related to this transaction. And then we'll be back in front of you on March 18th for approval of that resolution. So as a quick recap, the findings resolution for a debt transaction establishes the purpose and need, and these are some of the key points for the debt transaction that we hope to complete coming up in April. It's a refunding of debt that was originally issued in 2015 based on current market rates and the structure of that debt. We now have an opportunity to realize some savings. The amount is expected not to exceed $70 million issued this year. That amount will cover paying off all of the original debt from 2015 as well as paying cost of issuance related to the April transaction upcoming. Approval of the findings resolution also serves as authorization to county staff to apply to the LGC or the local government commission leg of the state treasurer's office. Looking at some of the specific benefits of this refinancing transaction, what you see on the screen is the savings allocation across funds and activities based on how we originally spent the money from 2015. So you'll see here the general fund would own about 53% of these savings. Since we talked in February, we have seen interest rates move a little more in our favor, so we're currently expecting around $4.9 million in savings. So, for example, the general fund would own about $2.5 million of that once we complete the transaction, depending on the final pricing and interest rates that we see when we sell the debt in April. I will mention here that we are also in discussions with our financial advisor and with the state on opportunities to leverage that savings on a kind of a shorter time frame. So seeing savings all up front in a single year or a few shorter years as opposed to spreading that out over time to support kind of our cash flow needs during the recovery period. So that is a reminder of what we talked about, the items I'll ask you to consider today. Looking ahead, I want to introduce the issuance resolution. So whereas the findings resolution establishes purpose and need, the issuance resolution is more about the legal framework of the actual deal that we're doing. It confirms things like the security structure. So investors who buy bonds from the county are granted a security right, and some of the assets that we package as a part of each of these deals, the security structure isn't changed from the last time we sold regular debt last year in 2024. The authorization of the issuance resolution will also serve as your formal authorization for us to go to the public market and sell the bonds. So coming back to the order of events, have talked about the findings resolution. We'll ask you to hold a public hearing today and then to consider and vote on the findings resolution, and then plan to be back in front of you at your next March meeting to vote on the issuance resolution. These are our requested actions. Do you have any questions for me?
Are there any questions for Mason? If not, we will open our public hearing at 5:59 p.m. Are there any members of the public who wish to comment this evening? All right, if not, we will close our public hearing at 5:59 p.m. Do we have a motion to approve the 2025 LOBS findings resolution?
Second.
Whitesides, Moore, that's who I heard. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Motion passes. Thanks, Mason. We appreciate it. And we will see you back in a few weeks.
And I'll stay here. I think I have another item for you. But I will also come back in a few
We do not have a county manager's report. So yes, you are remaining up here for a resolution for FY25 vehicles.
I have a county manager.
Sorry, I wasn't trying to skip. I'll wait for my slides. I'm presenting another debt transaction, and this is a slightly different type of deal. So we'll walk through the pieces, but this is simplified from what we have discussed against the limited obligations bonds transaction that we discussed previously. This one is called, while we wait for the slides to come on the way, 2025 vehicle financing. And this is, in a way, a continuation of the current fiscal year, fiscal 25 budget planning that you all went through about a year ago, since we're in the current fiscal 26 planning cycle. You may know that Buncombe County has a vehicle leasing program for standard fleet type vehicles. We also have a need, of course, to use vehicles that are more specialty in nature, usually in the public safety space, but some other kind of larger vehicles that are not a part of a lease fleet, and we purchase those. So this is a conversation about getting money to purchase those items. The planned amount for the set of vehicles we're looking at for this year is not to exceed $4 million, and I'll look at a quick overview on the next slide of the types of vehicles that we're looking at purchasing. We are calling this one a simple installment financing contract, which equates to a direct bank loan, and so the structure is much simpler than what we've been talking about with the refunding deal to this point. We are not required to apply to the state for this deal for several reasons. We'll go directly to banks for loans. We'll, of course, be in touch with the state, and we'll have to report it as we go. Another part of this is we'll ask you to consider and vote on a reimbursement resolution today. The effect of that is we may have already purchased some of these vehicles and will continue to purchase The reimbursement resolution says we'll get the money, we will reimburse ourselves from those funds as needed. And a big part of that is it allows us to go to banks for tax-exempt bank rates, which are generally lower than taxable rates. This is an overview of the types and uses of the vehicles that we're looking at. And next steps here are, we'll ask you again today to consider and vote on a reimbursement resolution as part of this process. Once we get the go-ahead, staff will start to put out requests for bank rates and plan to put together a recommendation and come back to you to finalize this deal no later than your final regular meeting of this fiscal year, but we hope to be back sooner. Recommended action. Are there any questions for me?
Are there any questions for Mason? Yes, Commissioner Sloan.
Is there already a firm identified list of the vehicles?
We have a general listing of the types of vehicles that we need, and we have purchased some of those already, but if we need a specific, we're still identifying, I think, what some of the vehicles will be.
And I believe the list was approved last budget year in 2025. Yeah.
Right.
Yep. Any further questions? If not, do we have a motion to approve the reimbursement resolution?
So moved.
Moore? Whiteside second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Resolution passes. Thanks so much, Mason. Melissa Moore, our finance director, is here to provide some additional information on the resolution to accept North Carolina cash flow loan program. Good evening, Melissa.
I just wanted to give you a little bit of background on the cash flow loan program. The state adopted the program in its second round of disaster relief bill that was toward the end of 2024. The appropriation took place, and then there was a little bit of a holdup, but the program was approved at the state level through disaster recovery. Since October through February, the county is engaged with state and other stakeholders to provide feedback on advocating for the most effective and flexible use of those funds. February 14th was kind of the deadline that the state used to determine kind of how they were going to allocate the appropriated pot of money to all of the different entities and organizations, governments that had FEMA projects into their FEMA grants portal at that time. So February 24th, the county was unofficially notified of their total loan amount. And then today, come before you to take action to approve the required documents. So the structure of the loan program, the state appropriated $100 million for the entire loan program. They based that allocation of who got how much based on the date of February 14th. Anyone that has projects in the FEMA public assistance, so PA grants portal, they took the number as of the 14th and determined that weighted allocation. That is not the deadline for submitting FEMA. I want to make sure that that's clear. The deadline for that is still open, and we still have through April to continue to build our projects out. So this is not a final number. The amount that was allocated by the state to Buncombe County was $8.45 million. This is a 0% interest loan. The terms for any of those funds that are reimbursed by insurance proceeds or FEMA or any other type of funding that is reimbursed to the county that has to be repaid by within 5 years, the last repayment date of June 30, 2030. There are some restrictions. The main one is the funds can only be used for disaster response activities. Further restriction in the loan documents are that the funds have to be in a separate fund. So to be clear that these are not dollars that can be used to support operations. This is not funding that will make its way over to our general fund. Just want to make sure that that is understood. So while we see some pending legislation that's working through to amend some of the appropriated amounts the way that the documents are today, in order to move forward and actually get that money, we have to approve the resolution and authorize county manager to execute the loan agreement, the promissory note. And then we would be able to finalize the loan documents and submit basically funding bank information for them to wire the funds to us. So this is the last step. There is strong indication and support that based on the amount of need from all of the impacted areas, that this $100 million didn't touch a small percent of what was even in there as of in the grants, FEMA grants portal as of February 14th. So as the impacted entities continue to submit their information, that number's only going to increase. And there is support at the state level to, I guess, replenish this program and provide additional funding. Yet to be determined, doesn't happen until it's voted on in a subsequent disaster bill. But there does seem to be support leaning that direction. So the requested action today is to authorize the resolution to enter into the grant agreement.
Any questions?
Questions?
I guess,
Yes and yes.
okay, yeah.
Go first.
There's a lot of questions.
Well, I hesitate, I try not to ask anybody from this microphone hypotheticals, but I guess if the legislature is proposing and possibly going to pass forgiveness for this pot of money, I guess that's an entirely different can of worms than a loan with very specific fine print and paperwork associated with that loan. So how do we proceed here with this if the legislature were to kind of change the game, so to speak?
Sure. So the forgiveness would be on portions that we weren't able to be reimbursed for. So to prevent like double dipping, if
From FEMA.
we receive insurance proceeds, we're not going to also get money from the state for that same need. If we receive FEMA reimbursement, those would not be forgiven. We would just turn around and send that money back because they're kind of just giving it to us in the interim until FEMA gives it. Now, the forgiveness would be on anything that we have filed for insurance claim or FEMA reimbursement, and they come back and tell us, no, you didn't fill out this form correctly, or this doesn't meet the guidelines. Those are some of the areas that are more applicable to that forgiveness. So you can't get $1 from the federal government or any other area and a same dollar for that same need from the state. That would be double dipping, right? So we can't do that. But where there are other needs that are disaster response activities that are not reimbursed to the county from any other funding source, that is where some of that language has come into play for the forgiveness.
Other questions?
Yeah, mine.
Yeah.
Kind of relates. So I'm looking at the loan agreement, and it says that the funding's to pay for the recipient's disaster response activities as set forth in the FEMA public assistance worksheets. So it's that specific, so it has to be things within those worksheets for this funding to be used for? I just want to clarify.
I think what Melissa is saying, though, is those worksheets are still not yet completed. We had them in there as February 14th, but we still had lots more to do between now and then. It's all done. But I think what they're looking at is the worksheets to the different categories that FEMA allows you to charge projects to. So, yes, so it could be debris removal, it could be pre-positioning, or the pre-planning pieces. It's all those different aspects that comes into play when you talk about the FEMA worksheets.
Okay.
I think Melissa's point is noted that this is for disaster activities, right? Not the revenue replacement that we were talking about earlier. This is strictly for, the restriction is about disaster activities that we've undertaken.
And that was part of what I'm trying to figure out, right? Because we know we have a revenue replacement issue. We've been talking about that. And so it was my understanding that that was really our need, that it wasn't so much cash flow, that we didn't have that challenge. So just trying to figure out, like, this is not going to help with what we had hoped it was going to help with.
It is not as unrestricted as that. So tonight, what we're asking for tonight is to allow us to apply for that grant. And then we would want to come back after we take the time and work through what we would spend that money on. Right? So I do think there are some disaster activities that are not yet. We don't know yet if it's going to be denied by FEMA or not, but there's some that we can probably tell you that would not be reimbursed by FEMA. And the one that comes to mind for me is the navigators that we put on the ground early. And our Tetra Tech folks told us, well, you know, this is not going to be reimbursed by FEMA, but our community needed it, and we did it anyway. So I don't want to say no to the grant yet until we've actually worked through every activity that we've done to tell you what can be reimbursed or not, or at least what we think we can get this money for. And to Parker's question about the forgiveness piece, we don't know yet. That is still in the House. It's not in the Senate budget, so we don't know yet what that's going to look like. But to date, so I don't want to say no to our process until we have all the pieces on the table.
Okay, thank you for the clarification.
A question I have, are they going to open this up again? When I read the list, that only comes to $74 million. So it was $100 million. What about the other $26 million?
There was language in there about how they were holding it back for any of the counties that, or not just counties, any of the entities that hadn't gotten their information in yet or something to that effect. They were intentionally holding some back for the areas that don't have, I guess, the support staff to get their documentation in.
So this is probably going to be all we get from that.
Until they reappropriate additional funding. But it sounds like there is a great deal of support leaning toward replenishing it. The bigger deal was to actually get a program that actually worked, have a funding mechanism to distribute the funds. And so that's kind of where we're at today.
And without getting too optimistic or making a really big mistake as a lawyer, round one implies multiple rounds. Where that comes from, when it comes, out of our control, state making some decisions based on what the federal government does. But for our purposes today, our only question is, do we facilitate this money coming in and using it appropriately as quick as we can for the things that we know we need right now?
Are there any further questions for Melissa?
Would there be opportunities for us, just thinking of ways we can utilize this funding, to make repairs to fire stations that lost equipment, or, you know, do we think there's anything in that with our first responders that may need assistance?
Again, this is a loan program, so if we were going to give money to fire departments, it would be in the local agreement, but it would be also a loan to them that they would need to make sure they document, use it for disaster response. The same restrictions that apply to us would apply to them. And so it will be a lot of oversight to make sure we get all the documentation, that they didn't get reimbursed from FEMA and it wasn't double dipping. So all those pieces would have to come into play if you start saying it would be used to different entities in our community.
Okay, and then through the county, if schools have specific needs, that they would be willing to go and do a loan program for, would the schools be able to apply for this as well?
And schools are not allowed to have loans in North Carolina. So again, that we have to work through that conversation. And that has the conversation that Melissa has been having with the state on how would you structure such a program. And the state's attorneys has been, not the state attorney general, but the Treasurer's Department attorneys have been looking at what that will look like, because schools don't have the authority to do loans in North Carolina at this point.
The county, right?
Right. So that's one of the reasons tonight, use of the funds is not the conversation as much as do you want us to even participate in the program to get the funds, and then think through how would you use them in our community. So we will have to come back with more details.
And it sounds like if we don't take the funds and then the House bill is successful and it's forgiven, then we may have missed out on a huge opportunity. Okay, thank you.
I'd like to make the motion for Buncombe County to enter a cash flow loan agreement with the state of North Carolina not to exceed $8.45 million, and to authorize the county manager to execute the necessary associated documents.
Second. More? Any further Questions or discussion? Oh, it was Commissioner Ball, I'm sorry. You sound the same right here. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Melissa. Thank you for that correction. It sounded like you. All right, we have our approval of our legislative agenda for 2025, and Tim Love, our Assistant County Manager, is joining us, and I believe Whitney Christensen from Warden Smith is also joining us remotely. Yeah.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Tim Love. I am joined, as you said, by Whitney Christensen, who represents us in Raleigh. She's with our Warden Smith team. And so this evening, the item before you is a requested action to adopt the Buncombe County Commissioners' 2025 legislative agenda. We reviewed this item at the last board briefing, which was on February 18th. So thank you for all of your thoughts and review on that. And so what we'll do today, Whitney is going to walk us through just quickly a couple of updates that are going on at the General Assembly. There's activity related to relief bills in the House and the Senate, and so she'll share a little bit about what we've seen as recent as today. But the primary action will be to walk through that legislative agenda that you saw at our briefing, see if you have any final comments, and if not, adopt that agenda, and then we'll proceed. So, Whitney, I will turn it over to you.
Thank you, Tim. Commissioners, thank you for having us here this evening. I'm joined by my colleague, Marley Peterson. And we, along with Trafton Dinwiddie, have been very busy advocating for you all in Raleigh these last few days, and including today. I thought I might be late for this presentation because we were meeting with your senator. But I will go ahead and share my screen so that we can review the legislative agenda. Let me know if you don't see this. Can everyone see the agenda?
I think we're all okay.
I can.
Whitney. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Wonderful. So the commissioners worked very hard in putting this together, as you know, along with staff. Manager Pender and Tim Love have spent many hours putting this document together, and we think it's a really great representation of the highest needs in the county at this time that the state legislature can help with, mixed with a dash of what we think is the most viable items for the General Assembly to help with this biennium. As you know, there have been a few rounds of legislative relief passed in late 2024 from the General Assembly, as well as some congressional action in December. But when crafting this document, we were really looking to what the General Assembly could help us most with in 2025 and 26. That first piece of legislation emerged from the House, from the chairs of the Disaster Relief Committee a few weeks ago. It's House Bill 47. That bill includes a few of these items, and we're working to add a few more and can give updates on those as we go through. But that bill is now in the Senate, had its first Senate vote today, will be on the Senate floor tomorrow, hence the hustle and bustle around getting your items into that document, and several meetings with your legislators today about that. But wanted to assure you all that we have been assured by legislative leaders in both chambers and both sides of the aisle that House Bill 47 is just the first of many relief bills this session. And I think the Speaker Hall has said repeatedly that when he's asked how many relief bills it will take, how many relief bills he's willing to do this session, he says as many as it takes to get Western North Carolina back on its feet. So while some of the items from your agenda already appear in House Bill 47, there are several more that do not, and we're working on separate vehicles for those now, and I can update you as we go through the document. But looking at the document, we tried to pull out top priorities to help legislators stay focused on the items that were highest need. And so you'll see those top priorities on this first page. It's, not an enviable position to be in as your commissioners to, make the decision about what is highest need versus second highest need. But I think they did a really great job prioritizing. So looking at the first item, local government recovery and stabilization grants. This, we can report that there's been a lot of progress already. House Bill 47, at the 11th hour, your House members, who have been fantastic, made a motion with our support to make the $100 million local government cash flow loan program forgivable at the end of the 10-year term, which is fantastic. As you know, the county has already been approved for an award. Your last motion was on that topic. So that was fantastic. Unfortunately, when the bill arrived in the Senate basically started from scratch and did not include that provision. We were present in the committee meeting today where the Senate's bill was unveiled. We communicated with several senators, including your senators, that we, were disappointed in the Senate's exclusion of that forgivability. Senator Heiss shared with the group that he felt like the, double allocation issue with FEMA might be problematic, and that the state was very focused on making sure that it didn't forgive funds that FEMA would later reimburse. Tim acted quickly to dispel that notion and provide some workarounds to ensure that anything paid for by a local government using the local government cash flow loan program proceeds would not be subject to FEMA exclusion if it wasn't a FEMA covered expense. And so we shared that information this afternoon with the powers that be. And Senator Mayfield is working on an amendment right now to, on the floor tomorrow, restore the forgivability of this provision, of this $100 million, of which the county, I believe, was awarded about $8.4 million. So we will be working tomorrow to whip votes for that amendment. We're really thankful for Senator Mayfield and her getting that into drafting. She added a caveat to her amendment that said essentially that anything that would be covered by FEMA would not be an allowable use under the grant program. So we're hoping that's enough to quell the opposition and the concerns that legislators have, but also shared some additional information from Tim this afternoon. So that one, that top priority is moving along well, and I think this is a really important item. I heard the public comment section earlier, and know that your citizens are focused on restoring those cuts that you all had to make, and so I think this is a very meaningful step towards making sure that the county has the revenue it needs to do that, and we know that that's very important to you all. So this is a great top priority. Moving on to the second item, the county, as you know, is very focused on restoring permanent housing solutions for individuals who are displaced by the storm. The housing stock situation was very challenging before Helene, and obviously the storm only exacerbated it as, so many dwelling units were lost. And so we have a two-prong approach here that we've been advocating for. Neither of these items were included in House Bill 47, but we are continuing to push these through the General Assembly. And I feel like we've had some really good traction in the second item in particular. And I should note that Manager Pender, Chairman Edwards, and Tim Love came to Raleigh on February 5th, and we overscheduled them with a very full day of meetings, and they were incredibly persuasive and powerful in those meetings. And that time was when I'm saying that we had good traction on the second item and continue to follow up on that. But anyway, very meaningful meetings, and appreciate you all making the trip. But the first prong to the two-pronged approach here on housing is our advocacy for a block grant model where there would be state appropriations directly to counties, and then the counties could administer a new housing construction, rehabilitation, and repair program. We think that when counties administer something like this, it's most likely to, move the funds out quickly and repair the housing stock as quickly as possible. So I think that's a really strong request. The second item, something we've been floating, is that the state could consider repurposing and potentially deeding to impacted counties the underutilized state-owned land within the state's inventory to be used to construct permanent housing. So we have some examples listed here. There's some in Swannanoa, Woodfin, some old prison properties, but we think that could help alleviate some of the, costs associated with rebuilding the housing stock. And the state for many years has, complained and, been frustrated by the situation of owning too much property and really grappled with what to do with it. And I think this is, a good solution to that problem while also helping solve the housing situation that you guys are experiencing. So that's a strong suggestion. And then the third item on the top priorities list on the first page here is additional support for emergency watershed protection program administration and management. And we've been telling legislators that there's a really strong need for additional funding for technical assistance in particular, such as administration, engineering, and then permitting fees, so that we can maximize participation in the program. So another really strong goal there, and have had some good initial feedback on that one. Moving to the second page of your legislative agenda, your draft legislative agenda, we have legislation delaying the scheduled equalization of public service companies due to the deferred fiscal year 25 property revaluations. Spent a lot of time on this one, probably as much or more time than just about anything else on this list, working on this one. And after a series of meetings with Duke, have confirmed that they will not oppose this request as of, I think, yesterday. That was an important barrier to work through in winning legislative support. And I can now report to you all that we really don't have anything standing in our way with this one, except a procedural issue. We had support on the House side for this. We had House members of yours who were willing to introduce it on House Bill 47 when it was still in the House. But the issue when you add something like this, which the House principal clerk and Senate principal clerk considered a finance provision, even though it impacts your taxes, not the state's taxes, but we could argue about that one at another time. Because it's a finance provision, it would make the bill a roll call vote. And so it would delay, it would extend the amount of time necessary to pass the bill, both in the House and the Senate. And since the sponsors are really motivated to get the bill through quickly, as you see today, I mean, the bill was unveiled in the Senate today and it's going to be voted on tomorrow. They didn't want that extension. And so the good news with this one, I think we've finally found a really good resting place for this language. Senator Mayfield, Senator Daniel, and Senator Moffitt jointly filed Senate Bill 131 about 2 weeks ago on this topic. Well, actually on the Article 39 topic, and have allowed us to use that bill to create a PCS, a proposed committee substitute, to include this language. And we had meetings this afternoon to get that bill moving so that we can enact this piece of legislation separately from House Bill 47. So I do think, and I have texts coming in this afternoon, I do think that we'll have an opportunity to see that bill moving in the next few weeks, which is fantastic, and would create new revenue for the county, or restore lost revenue is probably a better way to put it. Next up, supporting additional resources for mental and behavioral health, including emergency responders, law enforcement, and state employees. I don't think this needs any justification. You all know how important this is, and I think it's fantastic that the county prioritized this. We've seen some interest in prior Helene relief bills in this topic, and so would love to continue to advocate for this for you all in 2025. Moving on to the last section, the appropriations priorities. We are requesting, with your blessing, if this agenda is to be approved, additional state funding for state employees, including K through 12 and community college education employee salaries. We were successful in requesting this in 24 with one of the earlier relief bills. And so you all in this draft agenda have recommended that we continue to do that and advocate for that in both additional relief bills and the state budget. So we would love to do that for you all if you're to approve this agenda. Next item, business recovery loans and grants. We know that local businesses would really benefit from financial support that doesn't involve additional indebtedness. And I think this is a great one to prioritize. It's been the subject of much conversation at the General Assembly in recent weeks. And I know there's a lot of support for this across Western North Carolina. There are some, critics of this concept in the General Assembly, but I think there are more supporters, and it's obviously a very meritorious goal. And so I think this is a really good one to consider, and an important piece of the puzzle when you're thinking of Western North Carolina's larger picture economic recovery. Next, we have water and sewer system expansion and redundancy. So this request, I think, is one of the few that builds on an item from our 23-24 agenda related to expanding capacity out to, or extending water lines out to Candler. This was a priority in 2024, and we would love to continue to advocate advocate for it again, but in the context of, resiliency and preparedness for future storms too. So I think there are a lot of good arguments that we can build around that. And Marley and I were in a meeting today where another appropriator indicated that he feels like the state will have a good deal of federal money still to spend related to water projects. And so I think this is a strong item from that perspective. We've got to tailor these agendas to where the fund availability is to the extent that we can. And I think this is a really nice example of a really strong local priority that's forward looking, resiliency focused, that also ties in with where the state is expected to have resources to spend in 2025. And then second to last on the list is state funding for emergency response infrastructure, equipment, and vehicles. We've seen a little bit of this in House Bill 47, but no specific earmarks to specific departments. They did include in both the House and Senate version of House Bill 47, $10 million in grant money that the state fire marshal would administer to be used to provide grants to local fire departments or fire departments that were in impacted counties. But this goal includes a specific request to replace an ambulance apparatus that was lost during the storm that is an uninsured loss. And we think this is a great one for a variety of reasons. We've seen apparatuses included in prior budgets unrelated to disasters. We think the price point is good. And so really think this was a great suggestion by you all and would love to help advocate for this one. It's also tangible, which legislators like. And then last, we're requesting again, and so this too is a carryover item from 23-24. But if you approve this agenda, we would be requesting again reimbursement for the school consolidation study that was required by the General Assembly in 2023. We made really good progress on that in 2024, and I'm fairly confident that if we'd had a state budget, this would have been covered. Fortunately, we did not have a state budget. But this year, your House members, your wonderful House members, and you have wonderful Senate members too, but your House members have already filed legislation to request reimbursement for this for the county. And I can share that bill with you in a second if you'd like, but this is a great one, has good momentum already. Your Senate delegation supports it, your House delegation supports it, and would love to advocate for this one for you again, especially since we were so close to the finish line on it last year. And I think we would have had this had there been a budget. So that concludes the agenda presentation and the items that you all have identified for 25. We think this is a really great list. We commend you all for identifying these priorities and taking off the time that you took to be thoughtful about which items should be elevated, which items are timely, and also commend you on a really great set of meetings earlier this month discussing the needs of the county. So happy to answer any questions, but that's my high-level overview of the agenda that you've got before you as a draft.
Thank you, Whitney. Commissioners, the action we're requesting of you today is the adoption of the legislative agenda. That would be the motion. But before we do that, I would welcome any questions, comments that y'all have. Glad to discuss further.
Whitney, I do have a question for you. This is Amanda.
Yes, ma'am.
And first of all, to the other commissioners, the ability of Whitney, Trafton, and Marley to work within the General Assembly to be well respected and recognized definitely helped make our visit even more productive. And so we're really grateful for the work of the three of them and Warden Smith. My quick question for you is, while we were there seemed to be some good traction around the underutilized state-owned land for permanent housing, which is exciting. We've been looking at this for a number of years. Are you all hearing any additional movement on this?
Yes, and I agree with you. The momentum that day around that item was really strong, and I think you all presented it really well. We were in another meeting last week where a legislator brought this issue up, and so I do think the support for it is still there and the momentum is building. And if you all approve this agenda, we would love to go tackle this one. We could run meetings just on this topic And I think the support would be there. The state, that would solve two problems, frankly, for North Carolina with one swing. And so I think this one is really ripe for success and would love to tackle it.
Thank you. Commissioners, other questions? If not, do we have a motion to, oh, I'm sorry, Commissioner Moore?
I will keep it brief. I've
Oh,
been
you're
very
fine.
bad at that today. Thank you. I just want to say thank you to y'all for helping facilitate this conversation and for Chair Edwards representing us in Raleigh there. It's a really important conversation, and I'd like at the top of the list the local government recovery and stabilization grants, because a lot of the discussions that we've had today, I think today is just kind of the perfect bow to put on it, to share with people that revenue replacement is so important for us and us being able to get that money back so we don't have to cut services or address these issues that local business owners are having. All of that comes from Buncombe County revenue. And we're having this discussion largely because we need to find ways, creative ways of working with our partners to do that. So I'm excited. I think this is reasonable. I think we have real time in front of us exactly what we can do with our money when we're trusted to have that, and people in our community can see why this legislative agenda is so important, because we need our state's help to really get through it and provide the services that they're asking for. It's very clear that we have any number of needs that we need to get back to addressing, and that's going to be best done with the support of our state partners. So I'm excited, and thank y'all for advocating the Raleigh on our behalf. I wish I could drive down there every day, but it takes a while.
We're honored to help, and I think you all are to be commended for the message, the really strong messaging on February 5th about the need to restore those lost budget funds so that you could continue to provide these really important services that you do in the county. I don't think any legislator you met with didn't receive that message from you all that day, and really commend you for beating the drum on that topic to generate state support for restoring those things. And I'll just add that there are 3 items on your agenda that would restore lost county revenue. One is those grants, the turning the local government cash flow loan program into a forgivable loan program, but also the equalization item. And then also another item we've been working on for the county. You guys have just been really, really thoughtful and zealous and making sure that you're looking under every rock to restore that revenue. And I commend you for it, because I know things are tough and you're under a lot of pressure there, but I've been really impressed by how dedicated you've been to restoring that revenue so you can restore the services.
I just have a quick request. The underutilized land, Whitney, if you or Tim could get back with me, I'd like more information on that discussion and what people are saying, because I haven't heard anything. Also, underneath policy priorities, the first legislation delaying the scheduled equalization, could you explain what that is?
Yep, glad to. And so this issue, it's kind of a nuanced local government tax issue. But the basic idea is because we are deferring our revaluation, and the reason we did that was the importance of allowing our community to recover after Helene. What happens is that triggers what's called the equalization process for public service entities. Public service entities are very specific. These tend to be utilities. So Duke is the primary you would think of, some of our railroads, other examples. And so what effectively happens is because of that deferment of the reval to support our residents, it triggers equalization, which reduces the taxable value of those public service entities based on our sales ratio, which Eric Kreger presented to us earlier. And to do a very simple math example, like this isn't real numbers, so nobody quote me. If we had $1 million in public service property taxable value, it would be reduced by our sales ratio about 62%, so from $1 million to about $620,000. And that, we know, is not what we would expect in our community, because in most years, our property values are appreciating. So instead of going up, we're going the exact opposite direction because of the action we took to defer reval to support our residents immediately after hurricane basically impacted many of our households. So,
thank you so much.
Anytime.
Thanks, Tim. Are there any other questions? If not, do we have a motion to approve our 2025 legislative agenda?
I'll make the motion to approve our 2025 legislative agenda.
Second.
Commissioner Sloan, second by Commissioner Horton. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Legislative agenda passes. Thank you all to each of you here for the time and effort and energy that you have spent into helping direct this legislative agenda. We've presented several of these over the years, and I feel like this is by far the strongest legislative agenda that we have approved. They've all been strong. This is, again, by far the strongest, and it really digs in and addresses the needs that we have as we continue to recover, rebuild, and become more resilient after Helene. So thank you all, and thank you to Tim and the staff, and to Whitney and Marley and Trafton. It is a pleasure to get to work alongside you all on our goals. Thank you.
Thanks, Whitney.
Thank you all.
We do have several board appointments this evening. We did add the VIA board as the third appointment. This afternoon, we interviewed several community members to serve on the Community Entertainment Facilities Commission, which used to be known as the Civic Center Commission, and we had some great applicants join us for some very brief interviews this afternoon. And keeping with our tradition of starting on one end, and each commissioner will have an opportunity to choose the member that you would like to see serve. We will start with Commissioner Wells.
Thank you, and I was excited. We had some really good candidates, and my choice is John DeLoley.
Yeah, I agree. Hard to pick. Ashland Freestone.
Okay.
Yeah, I was really impressed with the folks who stepped up, and it's really inspiring to see people want to serve our community in this way. It's a difficult decision. I'm going to see how the rest of the commissioners feel, and I'll vote based, because I feel like there were some really good candidates. I'm curious what folks think.
Are you wanting us to come back to you?
Sure, yeah.
Okay. I'll go with Ashland Freestone.
Okay. I'm going to skip down to the end. Commissioner Horton.
Ashland Freestone.
You get me?
I'm coming to you. Commissioner Whitesides. I was working back inward.
Ashley.
Okay. Commissioner Ball.
I think John DeLoy.
Okay. And I'm also selecting John DeLaloy. Where does?
4-3. Ash.
Okay, 4 for Ashland and 3 for John. All right. Well, I do hope that our interviewees, applicants, will continue to look at the vacancies of additional boards and commissions, and will continue looking for the opportunity that is right for them and continue applying to that. We have a Land of Sky Regional Council Board of Delegates to appoint. And this is an at-large slot person appointed to ensure representation of regional minority interest. Do we have anyone to make a motion for one of the two candidates?
Yes, I'll make a motion to appoint Sandra Kilgore.
A second.
And Commissioner Horton second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Sandra Kilgore will serve in that role. And we do need to appoint a commissioner to serve on the VIA board. And I think there's, yes, I think there's a motion.
I was going to move that Parker Sloan accept this wonderful honor.
And I'll second.
An extra meeting.
Commissioner Horton seconded.
Yes, and Commissioner Horton second. Motion by Vice Chair Moore. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, Commissioner Sloan, for serving on that board for us. We'll look forward to updates on the work, which is a perfect segue into our next agenda item, which are board announcements. This is where we have the opportunity to share any updates from boards and commissions that we serve on that have met in the past 2 weeks.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'll just give everybody a heads up. We've talked at 2 meetings now at our Affordable Housing Committee regarding the fanfare and paperwork around adding 2 citizen numbers to the Affordable Housing Committee, which has, since its inception, been 3 county commissioners. And so that's something that we're working on, and we will bring to the full board for your consideration. And we'll have to tweak a little bit of the bylaws, I think, to kind of make that work. But just to give you a heads up in case you didn't hear that.
Which means we will also be doing full Board of Commissioner interviews for those slots.
And this one is less of an update, but just kind of an appreciation for largely Commissioner Whiteside's having seen this come to fruition over the years with early childhood and how much work has gone into that. A lot of the programs have reached out since our last meeting to just share the impact that these grants have had in terms of keeping childcare accessible, which we know has had a tremendous impact on our workforce and allowing people to get back to work knowing that their kids are taken care of. And while this is a tough time for everyone in our state, I'm proud to say we're one of the few counties in the entire state of North Carolina that has not had kind of record closures in terms of child care centers in a really pivotal time. So I just wanted to express that appreciation for all the people who have kept that running.
Any others from you all? All right, I do have a couple. Not a board that I serve on, but I did go on the Asheville Airport tour a couple of Fridays ago, and it is really exciting to see the airport come to we are so close to that new section of the airport being open, and it is going to be beautiful. And I've said over and over that Asheville and Buncombe County is getting the airport we finally deserve. And seeing the record numbers of travelers through the airport coming to visit and making that commute as well for local residents who have to travel for their jobs, and being able to do that out of their home airport is exciting to see, and not having to go even out of state to get a commuter flight somewhere. I serve on the Chamber of Commerce Board in an ex officio role. The County Commission Chair has that seat, and attended my first meeting last Thursday afternoon. And it was a really interesting discussion, jointly led by city staff and our own Kathleen Blackney from Strategy and Innovation on the work being done around Helene and recovery, and being able to hear from some of the business leaders, the concerns that they have. And also, as we move forward in some of our work, being able to draw on their expertise. And I know a number of them are working with E.B. Otterstall as well. So that was a great meeting to start attending. And then the next morning was the Economic Development Coalition meeting, and quick update from it. We got a 5x5 preview, which will be fully unveiled on March 27th at 3 p.m. So stay tuned from that email from the EDC. That is the strategic plan for the EDC. And there is some very significant crossover in the goals of the 5x5 plan that align very closely with the goals of Buncombe County government, specifically in regards to increased wages and bringing additional jobs into our community that are high-paying jobs. So I really hope that everyone will be able to attend that as we particularly, again, work through our recovery process, that there's going to be a lot of synergy and alignment around that 5x5 with our work. And just really grateful to serve on both of those. Do we have any further board updates? All right. Our next briefing and regular meeting of the board will be held on Tuesday, March 18th, beginning at 3 p.m. for our agenda briefing in the Commission Chamber, and our regular meeting at 5 p.m. I do believe we have a need for a closed session, and Kurt has our...
We do. I would need a motion that the Board of Commissioners go into closed session for the following reasons. Excuse me. To consult with an attorney employed or retained by the public body in order to preserve the attorney-client privilege between the attorney and the public body, which privilege is hereby acknowledged, and give instructions concerning the handling of a lawsuit that is in federal district court, Buncombe County et al. Versus HCA Healthcare et al., case number 1:22 CV 147. There will be no formal action taken after the closed session.
Do we have a motion for closed session?
So moved.
Second.
Moore, Sloan, all in favor?
Aye.
We are in closed session, and we do not anticipate taking any action, so we will adjourn from closed session. Thank you all.